Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show. Gollum. Everyone couldn't help swallowing, and finally stopped fighting. Wu Yong's reputation for strength is well known, and many people have heard of it. Even with such strength, there is no way to reach the highest level, so it is conceivable how difficult this ruin is. And a lot of people just noticed it. Wu Yong was not crushed because of his attributes, but because of his fighting consciousness. The higher the level of heroic soul, the stronger the fighting consciousness, even comparable to those veterans who have fought bravely on the battlefield for decades. These battles all rely on the arms, and the lords who rarely do it, how can they win such an existence? Immediately, many lords who felt that their strength was not as strong as Wu Yong hurriedly retired and gave up their plans to challenge. Certainly. There are also some who are confident in their own strength, or want to try it out, take this opportunity to stand directly on the platform where no one is present, and start to challenge. But oddly enough, in the direction Wu Yong had just challenged, no one dared to go up again, leaving the platform empty. Lin You, who was at the bottom, observed carefully and found that although the ruins were called sword tombs, the weapons above were of various kinds. Knives, swords, spears, halberds, hammers, bows, whips. Everything you need. And Wu Yong challenged the penultimate layer in that direction, using a sword. It's nothing. The reason why they dared not set foot on it the most was because the weapon on the last floor was a big sword emitting a strong blood light. At a glance, it is known that the weapon has drunk countless blood. You don't have to think about it to know how powerful the master's fighting consciousness was in his life. At least it looks much more terrifying than weapons in other directions, and no one dares to provoke it easily. On the contrary, it was cheaper for Lin You. Seeing that there were a lot of people waiting in other directions, he didn't think much, and walked directly into the vacant bottom platform. This move immediately attracted the attention of many people, with a look of surprise on their faces. Does anyone really dare to go up? Didn't he see it just now? Even Wu Yong failed in that direction. I guess it's another self-righteous egomaniac. I bet he'll be knocked off the 9th floor. The 9th floor? From the looks of it, it would be good to be able to reach the 8th floor. Don't talk about it, look over there. Could it be Qingfeng from the Beast God realm? Fuck. It's really him, why is he even here? Suddenly, there was a large exclamation from the crowd. Lin You, who had just boarded the platform, was immediately attracted by their gazes. Looking at the challenge platform in the other direction, there was a red-haired man surrounded by flames. Taking a closer look, it turns out that it is the lord of the Huofeng family, who was born with the ability to control flames. This race Lin You had heard of before. Just like the half-dragons with dragon blood, they are classified as humanoids and orcs. It is one of the few races that has an innate advantage at the beginning. But the disadvantage is that the number of lords of this race is very small, and the reproductive ability is also very general. On this point, the human race is far ahead. Lin Yu didn't expect to encounter such a rare race here, so he couldn't help but take a few more glances. And the strength of this Qingfeng is not weak. The magic energy list ranked 3rd, several places higher than him. Just in the moment he looked at it, he immediately dropped the heroic soul on the 1st floor and stepped into the 2nd floor. He didn't even hold on to the heroic soul on the 2nd floor for a long time, and he was instantly knocked out by a flame attack, and set foot on the 3rd floor again. The speed is simply amazing. Lin Yu was surprised in his heart, how could he still have the mind to observe others? Hearing the constant shouting and fighting sounds in his ears, he immediately took a deep breath, walked slowly to the two-handed sword, and pulled it up. Swish! Light flashed. Like Wu Yong before, what appeared in front of him was a warrior hero using a two-handed sword. Lin You had already memorized the fighting methods of this heroic soul by heart. Without wasting time, I immediately took out the ice soul sword and charged straight up. At this time, the blessing of all attributes of his territory has reached 60%. Coupled with the additional physique of the racial talent, it is not a big problem to deal with monsters that are not even F-rank leaders. As soon as he stepped out, the big knife in his hand launched a thrust, stabbing the soldier heroic soul's chest, and a burst of extreme cold swayed in the air. When the warrior heroic soul greatsword was placed across his chest, blocking the blow. But the huge impact force knocked it out. The deceleration effects of the ivory ice pendant and the broadsword are triggered at the same time, and it spreads rapidly around its body along the arm, causing its speed to drop suddenly. When he raised his two-handed sword and prepared to counterattack, Lin You had already arrived. With lightning speed, a horizontal slash infused with brute force directly cut it in half. Puff! The heroic soul of the warrior was cut into two sections with one knife and dissipated in the air. Congratulations, you successfully passed the first level test. You now have 10 minutes to prepare. You can choose to continue the challenge, or you can choose to give up directly. Continue. Lin You answered without any hesitation. The attack just now only took less than 5 seconds, and it didn't consume much physical strength at all. He didn't want to waste time on it. Look! Qingfeng has reached the 5th floor. At this moment, there was another exclamation from the crowd watching the battle outside. Lin You looked into the distance, and the Qingfeng from the Phoenix family had indeed killed the heroic soul on the 4th floor and successfully climbed to the 5th floor. That is, the sea-level warrior heroic soul is the opponent. So fast? Lin Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, and he didn't dare to waste time. He quickly teleported to the 2nd floor platform and began to challenge the next opponent. And this time, the platforms in all directions were also filled with the sound of fierce battles. The challengers who boarded the platform are colliding wildly with heroic souls at all levels, swords and swords. And almost all of them are above the 5th floor. As expected, they are the lords who can come to the number 1 battlefield. They are all powerful. By comparison, the progress on Lin Yu's side was going to be too slow, which immediately caused a lot of boos from below. Boy, are you okay? If it doesn't work, get down quickly and don't waste time on it. That's right, don't just occupy the puddle without shitting. There are still many people waiting behind. Hurry up, don't be silly, you won't be able to reach the top anyway. Originally, there were not many people willing to go to the platform on Lin Yu's side. But seeing so many people waiting in other directions, some of them finally came over and waited anxiously behind Lin Yu. Some even shouted loudly to urge them. Lin Yu glanced at them and ignored them, beheading the heroic soul of the warrior who was using the hidden sword in front of him, and then teleported to the 3rd floor. Same as before. The opponents on the 3rd tier did not hinder him much. He didn't even need to use the power of rules, and he was easily killed in less than half a minute. Then there is the 4th floor, a D-level hero with a gun. He had experience with spear weapons before, so he didn't spend much effort and easily solved the battle and came to the 5th floor. At this time, Qingfeng and the lords from other directions also entered the 7th floor one after another. Except for Qingfeng, the lords in the other 3 directions had already struggled very hard against the enemy, and suffered frequent injuries. In the end, 2 of them lost, and they were shot and flew out, regretting their exit. Seeing this, the lords below immediately swarmed up, seized the opportunity to challenge, and started a new discussion challenge. To sum it up is: the first 5 floors basically don't take much time. But starting from the 6th floor, it's time to fight each other's means. Lin You didn't dare to be careless, he came to the center of the platform and picked up a heavy axe, and summoned the heroic soul of the warrior. After spending more than a minute, constantly roaming and fighting on the platform, I finally successfully cleared the level and came to the 6th floor. Damn, why is that guy so strong and hasn't been beaten down yet? The other lords who were waiting below said very unhappily. Don't worry, I think that kid was already struggling a bit when he was on the 5th floor, and he shouldn't be able to pass the 7th floor. Just like him, he thought about the 7th floor. Can he pass me upside down? You can't do it. If he can pass, I'll be butterfly swimming in the shithole. You're all weak, I'm going straight to the acid slime. Fuck, brother is so ruthless, isn't this your own hobby? The lord below was arguing and waiting anxiously. Lin You on the stage was finally halfway through and came to the 6th floor. The 6th tier heroic soul is B level. All attributes have been increased by 60%, which is equivalent to his current territory blessing. And the basic attribute of the leader monster is close to the full value of the 8th order, and the strength is definitely higher than that of the leader he just upgraded. It looks like it can't be kept any longer. Lin You muttered to himself. Compared with the old-fashioned lord, his background is still a little worse. To put it bluntly, the basic attributes are poor, and the gap is narrowed by the attribute bonus of the godhead fragments. If he didn't use the power of rules, he would probably stop before the 8th floor, just like those lords. But even so, he was satisfied. At least he now has a certain understanding of his basic strength, which is no weaker than the old lord. Next, it's time to go all out. Think about it. He walked slowly to the center of the platform and picked up a bow and arrow. The moment the bow and arrow touched his palm, it flew to the other side, gradually converging into a more solid figure than the first 5 layers, holding a long bow in his hand, with a fierce momentum. Name, Warrior Heroic Soul. Race, Undead. Level 8. Power, 2280. Physique, 2200. Agility, 2400. Spirit, 2500. Skills, Arrow Rain, Tracking Arrow, Penetrating Strike. Chaos, all attributes increased by 60%. Introduction, the heroic soul transformed by the will to fight affected by the fighting consciousness before his death, he slept in the sword mound of the dead, eager for a battle. This is the only remote hero among the 6 levels challenged by Lin You. With those eagle-like sharp eyes, you can tell at a glance that he is a master with bows and arrows. Lin Yu's eyes were serious, and the moment the challenge began to remind his ears, the soles of his feet suddenly exploded, flying towards the heroic soul. At the same time, the power of rules is running, and the protection skills of the 4-leaf clover are activated, and all attributes are increased by 30%. With the addition of godhead fragments, this effect directly reaches a terrifying level of 36%. What's the matter? Why is his speed suddenly faster than before? The people below noticed the change in Lin Yu's momentum and exclaimed. Just now. Lin Yu's performance was the same as other lords, or even slightly worse. In a blink of an eye, his aura suddenly rose, surpassing other lords, and even his offensive became extremely fierce. Suddenly, the lord below was puzzled, and his expression became shocked. But don't give them a chance to react. Lin You, who was on the stage, had already rushed to the front of the warrior heroic soul, and the ice-old sword slashed out, approaching the other side's door. Wherever the sword went, the temperature plummeted, forming a layer of frost. It was as if the entire space was about to freeze. Chong! With a loud explosion, the warrior hero blocked the blow with his bow, turning over and jumping back by inertia. It was actually extremely agile to unload the attack and widened the distance between Lin You and Lin You. At the same time, he held an arrow in his hand and pulled the bow and arrow to the full moon. Boom! The bowstring vibrated, and an arrow like a phantom shot out, locking Lin Yu's throat. The bow and arrow were not fast, but the surrounding air was strangely twisted. Lin Yu's body shifted slightly to the left, and the arrow shifted along with it, as if locking his movements. Track the arrows. Lin You was shocked. When the bow and arrow hit, forcibly twist the body and turn sideways to avoid it. Whoosh! The bow and arrow was almost against his body, passing by him with a tyrannical tearing feeling. Then he spun around in the air and chased after him again. Then, there was another sound of breaking air behind him. The warrior hero launched a penetrating strike, shooting a more terrifying arrow. One after the other with the tracking arrow, they arrived in a flash, blocking all his escape routes. This horribly accurate archery control immediately caused an uproar among the lords below, and all of them were attracted. Unexpectedly. I thought it was Lin You who was in a mortal situation. The figure suddenly blurred, turned into an afterimage and rushed to break the blockade. There was a crisp click sound, and the two arrows intersected, breaking each other and dissipating in the air. So fast. How did he do that? Looking at Lin You, who turned into an afterimage on the stage, there were bursts of low voices from below. But they don't know. At this time, Lin You used the power of rules to activate the Demon Emperor Dragon's Swift Shadow skill, to increase his speed to an extremely exaggerated level. This is also a major role of Godhead fragments, although his basic strength may not be comparable to the Old Lord. However, through the cooperation of various skills, it can play a level that is not inferior to, or even far surpasses, the level of the Old Lords. Just breathing, Lin You got rid of the arrow pursuit and narrowed the distance with the warrior hero. The warrior heroic soul was not affected in the slightest, and once again jumped back to widen the distance. When turning over in the air, the bowstring was fully stretched, and it assumed a posture of a long rainbow penetrating the sun, and suddenly shot a large number of arrows into the sky. Arrow Rain. It is the unique group damage skill of archers. Just as Lin You stood still, there was darkness above his head, and countless arrows suddenly fell, covering the entire area where he was. If you get hit, you will be injured even if you don't die. But Lin Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. At this time, he is still in the state of rapid shadow. How can the speed be able to catch up with the skills of the mere range? The sole of the foot exploded, and the whole person turned into a sharp arrow and rushing out of the arrow rain. The warrior hero didn't seem to have expected his speed to be so fast, and the action of drawing the bow paused. It was this meal. Lin You seized the opportunity and slashed out the ice soul sword in his hand. Puff. The sound of the body being split rang out. The warrior heroic soul, who was still holding the bow drawing action in his hand, was instantly decapitated and killed on the spot. Congratulations, you successfully passed the first level test. You now have 10 minutes to prepare. You can choose to continue the challenge, or you can choose to give up directly. The cue fell, and the bow flew back to the center of the platform again, waiting for the next challenger to appear. Lin You took a deep breath, did not waste time, and chose to continue the challenge. After rising to the 8th level, the power of rules in his body has become much stronger, and he will no longer be able to support it with a few skills like before. So soon. He followed the prompt and came to the 7th floor platform. The people below were stunned in place one by one, and it took a while to react. Is this the end? What happened just now? It seems to be an acceleration skill. It should be some kind of territorial skill. What a perverted acceleration skill. I almost didn't see his movements just now, it's too strong. Humph, what if the speed is fast? It's not easy to pass through the next few floors. That's right. The few lords who just said they were going to stand upside down and have diarrhea said with a guilty conscience. But it is exactly as they say. The heroic souls on the next few floors have higher attributes than the other. And the fighting consciousness is getting stronger and stronger. With speed alone, without strength, there is no way to win. Even these veteran lords from all walks of life can at most reach the 8th floor. If you want to go further, you can only be a top lord like Wu Yong, or have some powerful special means. Boom. But at this moment, another violent collision sounded, interrupting the discussion of the lords. When they raised their heads and looked at the source of the sound, they suddenly froze, all with a ghostly expression. I saw it above the 8th floor in their direction. Lin You put away the ice soul sword and put it on his waist. In front of him was a copper hammer that fell to the ground, and the heroic soul of a warrior that was dissipating. Make the pupils of all those who are paying attention suddenly shrink. What's the situation? Why did that warrior heroic soul suddenly disappear? What happened? I don't know, I was talking just now, I didn't pay attention. It's too perverted to end the battle in such a short time? Something's wrong, there's something wrong with this guy. This moment. The lords were finally taken aback. I thought Lin You was just an unknown guy from some small realm, but I didn't expect it to be so fierce. In just 10 minutes, he matched the progress of other lords and came to the same 8th floor as Qing Feng and another old lord. It attracted the attention of the lords from other directions at once, and there was a lot of discussion. Qing Feng and the old lord are both old acquaintances who can be called by their names, so there is no need to say more about their strengths. But Lin You is different. As if he was born out of nowhere, he suddenly broke into the sight of all the lords and caught them off guard. Gollum. That guy, shouldn't he really be able to pass through the 8th floor and go to the 9th floor like Wu Yong? Impossible, right? The 8th floor is an S-rank hero. By the way, what about those betting people just now? Why are they all gone? I guess it's because of the acid slime, haha. Laughter soon spread through the crowd. And in other directions of the platform. Qing Feng, who was resting, and the old lord also looked at Lin You with solemn expressions. Only when you come here and experience the fighting consciousness of those warrior heroes can you know how powerful they are. To be able to equalize with them in terms of progress, the strength is obviously not weak. It may even be their archenemy for the ultimate reward. To know. Qing Feng came here because of the final reward. He will never allow anyone to reach the summit faster than him and get the reward that should belong to him. Very well, let's see who gets through the game first. Taking a deep look at Lin You in the distance, Qing Feng got up directly, walked quickly to the center of the platform, and started the challenge on the 8th floor. The old lord who was also on the 8th floor was not too slow, and he also started the challenge after a while. As for Lin You, he took 2 minutes to rest to restore the power of the rules. By the time he rested and got up, the battle on Qing Feng's side had already reached a white-hot stage. Looking around, the flames on the entire platform were monstrous, and the explosions continued. Qing Feng, surrounded by flames, was fighting furiously with the heroic soul of the warrior on the opposite side, moving left and right. It seems that it will take a long time to break through the 8th floor and reach the 9th floor. Gotta go faster. Think about it. Lin You retracted his gaze and joined the challenge on the 8th floor. His opponent on the 8th floor. It is an agile hero with dual swords, and its attributes reach the level of S rank. However, it was just passively restrained by his deceleration. After walking around on the platform for a few minutes, he finally seized the opportunity and successfully killed him. Like Qing Feng, she climbed to the 9th floor without getting hurt much. By comparison, the old lord who was with them was much more miserable. Although he also entered the 9th floor, he was covered in injuries, and it was almost impossible to return to his prime within 10 minutes of preparation time. So hesitating again and again, he had no choice but to leave and give up the challenge. All of a sudden, only Lin You and Qing Feng were left on the top floor, and they were the only 2 people who could reach this level after Wu Yong. In an instant, it became the focus of the audience, leading the hosts to talk a lot, and they were all guessing who could get through to the top. In the crowd, Wu Yong, who was recovering, stared coldly at Lin You, who was recovering while sitting on the platform. It was on that platform just now that he was directly knocked down. He wanted to see who else could pass the level that Wu Yong couldn't pass. Wu Yong, do you think that guy can pass? At this time uploaded inquiries from several of his companions. Like the others, they were also looking at Lin You on the stage curiously. How could I know? Wu Yong snorted coldly and ignored them. However, his eyes were fixed on the direction of the platform and Lin Yu's every move. After a while, Lin You and Qing Feng finally finished resting and got up almost at the same time and walked towards the center of the platform. Plants are better for this. With a high physique and strong recovery ability, it didn't take 10 minutes at all to return to a state of prosperity, which caused Qing Feng on the other side to frown. But he didn't stop, and together with Lin You, picked up the lost weapons on their respective platforms. Then, the light flashed. Their respective opponents gradually appeared opposite them, grasping the weapon. Name, Warrior Hero, Leader. Race, Undead. Level, Level 8, SS level. Strength, 2400 plus 2160. Physique, 2400 plus 2160. Agility, 2400 plus 2160. Spirit, 2400 plus 2160. Skills, Jianmong, Jianqin, and the combination of human and sword. Chaos, all attributes increased by 90%. Introduction, the heroic soul, transformed by the will to fight. He used to be a master of swordsmanship during his lifetime. He used swordsmanship to a great degree and rarely encountered opponents. Just like Wu Yong. Appearing in front of Lin You was an SS-level hero with a sword. And even the last introduction of attributes has changed. It's unusual at a glance. What surprised Lin You the most was that, just when he was observing the attributes, the warrior heroic soul actually spoke. Go ahead, my sword will not kill the unprepared. Good guy. Don't kill the unprepared? A mad swordsman, truly worthy of the name of the master of swordsmanship. But in the same way, Lin Yu's eyes became solemn. It can even be said that this warrior heroic soul has obviously inherited most of the consciousness during his lifetime. In other words, he inherited the fighting level of a swordsman master. Although he came to this world, he has been tempering his combat skills intentionally or unintentionally, and is much stronger than ordinary lords. But compared to the true master swordsman, there is still a certain gap. Exactly, you can take this opportunity to hone your fighting methods. Maybe one day you will be able to use it suddenly? Shoo! The ice soul sword at his waist was pulled out by Lin You in an instant, and he stood by his side naturally, his eyes fixed on the swordsman master. Then, the soles of his feet suddenly exploded, and the big sword in his hand was like a lion out of the cage, rushing towards the opponent. The sharp and chilly sword light was a bit more intense than before, as if it froze the air on the entire platform. Good come! The swordsman master shouted loudly. Facing the approaching sword light, without dodging or dodging, he raised his hand to hold up a piece of sword flower and flicked lightly on the blade of Lin Yu's ice soul Dao. With a bang, Lin You only felt a tyrannical anti-shock force swept his arm along the sword light, knocking him away and deflecting it to the side of the swordsman master. To others, it seemed as if he had deliberately reversed the direction. So strong. Lin You trembled inwardly, his steps were steady, and he stabilized his body. Seeing the long sword attacking him, he turned around and placed the big sword in front of him. Chong! The harsh collision sound echoed around. Where the two confronted, a wave of air surged out, blowing the clothes on Lin Yu's body. He also took this opportunity to slide and fly back, and then his footsteps were shocked, and he rushed out again. The blade was like a dragon, and he fought with the swordsman master again. A time. On the stage, swords, lights, swords, and shadows staggered. In just a few moments, the two have attacked and defended dozens of moves. The scene left everyone below stunned and shocked. Is this too fierce? To be able to compete with such a swordsman master. What a perverted fighting consciousness. Don't lords fight by troops? How come even lords are so strong? Usually, when there are arms to help fight, not many people are willing to hone their combat skills and play in person. Even if there is, it is just a casual practice of self-defense, and absolutely few can reach the level of proficiency. But Lin You is different. From the very beginning, he had a strong sense of crisis, and he was always thinking about his own safety. When I have time, I even go to the training ground to watch the cultivators fight and learn some fighting skills accumulated along the way. Unknowingly, he has thrown away a lot of other lords. This is probably one of his few strengths. But nonetheless, Lin You was still more and more shocked. Because he found that this swordsman master was not only stronger than him, but also able to detect his attack trajectory in advance. In the eyes of others, it seems that he is attacking more. But in fact, his entire attack path was led by the opponent, and he felt like he was gradually being suppressed, which made him very aggrieved. Even the deceleration effect on the equipment did not have much impact on this result. Break it for me. Finally, Lin You shouted and shook the opponent's long sword with a knife. And the freezing effect on the weapon just triggered, freezing the sword master in place. Lin You seized the opportunity and slashed again with a knife and a half-moon, instantly locking the opponent's throat. But at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The swordsman master, who was frozen, actually blasted away the ice on his body, and shot several fierce sword chi around. Lin You accidentally cut his chest open by one of the sword chi. Hiss! Blood splattered, and a terrifying wound appeared on his chest, dyed red. But he was not slow to respond. A few vertical jumps flew back, blocking the remaining sword energy with a big knife, only to be injured in flesh and blood. You are very good. In the midst of the ice, the swordsman master stood proudly with his sword in one hand, and pointed his eyes straight at Lin You. Obviously it's just the incarnation of fighting spirit, but there is a hint of admiration in his eyes, which makes Lin You think that he is wrong. You are also very good, you can force me to this. Lin You looked like a torch, wiped the blood on his hand, tore the broken clothes on his body, and threw them aside, revealing his well-trained and strong body. At the same time, secretly operating the power of rules, launching super regeneration to quickly repair the injury on the chest and stop the bleeding. At this time, his expression was no longer as free as before, but became more serious than ever. He slanted the ice soul sword to his side and stared at the swordsman master. Suddenly, the sole of the foot exploded, and the whole person turned into a sharp arrow and shot. At the same time, a red glow appeared on the body, and the already extremely terrifying momentum rose to an almost exaggerated level. Good come. The swordsman master seemed to feel Lin Yu's fighting spirit, shouted loudly, and also swept out with his sword, and went straight to meet Lin You. This moment, as if the sword in his hand was him, and he was the sword in his hand. A terrifying and fierce sword energy erupted around the sword body, as if it was about to split the air. What a strong momentum! I'm afraid it has reached the level of ninth order, right? This is really the strength that the 8th Order Lord can exert. Who is he? Why have I never heard of such a person before? So he has been hiding his strength just now? The lords below were shocked. I didn't expect Lin You to be able to display even more terrifying strength than before. In an instant, two extremely powerful forces on the stage collided suddenly, blasting countless ice blades and sword energy. The big sword and the long sword were constantly clashing, and there were bursts of explosions. However, it was different from before. On Lin Yu's knife, there was an indomitable arrogance. The moves opened and closed, and the moves went straight to the weakness of the swordsman master. It seems that they are all straight slashes and thrusts, but each knife is as powerful as a rainbow, and it goes straight to the opponent's weak spot. He actually abandoned all defenses and turned all his tricks into offenses. This was the first time that Lin You had let go of his crazy attack like this. Under the blessing of the barbaric roar and four-leaf clover skills, his entire 5 senses have also been upgraded to a new level. In his eyes just now, the swordsmanship was extremely tricky, as well as the elusive movement technique. At this time, there was nothing to hide, and under his offensive, he continued to resolve and even suppress it. Haha, come again. Lin You laughed loudly. Although he knew that this state would only last 30 seconds. But the feeling at this time was definitely something he couldn't experience at ordinary times, and it also made him truly understand the essence of using a knife. Swordsman, tyrant. He used to focus too much on defense and had too many scruples. So much so that they have forgotten the original meaning of the sword. Thanks to this master swordsman, let him really understand this. Drink. Another shout. After suppressing the swordsman master to the corner of the platform, Lin You suddenly burst out and slashed down fiercely. This knife, imbued with all his power, more infused with his aura. Wherever he went, the air trembled, and there was a faint sonic boom. Even if he was as strong as a swordsman master, he could only hold the long sword in front of him and face Lin Yu's shocking blow. When? Crack! The violent collision, accompanied by the sound of weapons breaking, resounded in my ears. The long sword in the hands of the swordsman master was broken. Along with its body, it was also cut off in the middle. The big knife was castrated unabated, and it crashed to the ground, sinking into a depth of half a meter. Everything on and off the stage stopped at this moment. All the lords below stared blankly at Lin You on the stage, as well as the swordsman master and his weapon who had been cut in half, speechless. Even Lin You himself. He was also stunned in place, his eyes were a little unreal. He took a deep breath, feeling the state disappear, and the power was continuously draining from his body. But there was no loss of his five senses, and he still maintained the level of the battle just now, as if his spirit had been sublimated. How come? Somewhere under the stage. Wu Yong stared in shock at the swordsman master, who was cut off by Lin You, his eyes rounded. That opponent who made him powerless was killed directly like this? Others don't know. But he who has played against a swordsman master knows how terrifying the difficulty of the challenge on the level, and it is definitely not something that can be won by simply improving the attributes. But now, that powerful existence actually lost in a head-to-head battle. One can imagine how shocked and unbelievable Wu Yong's heart was at this time. Even looking at Lin Yu's eyes became different. Not to mention others. Just looking at the momentum and attack power in the battle just now, one could feel the horror in it, which shocked them all, and couldn't help swallowing. This TM, even the Lord is so strong. If you run into it in the future, wouldn't it be impossible to even get close? To them, this Lord is the most terrifying. For other lords, their own strength is not strong. After breaking through the defense of their arms, it is easy to do heavy damage or even kill. But the lords who are strong in themselves are different. Unless the troops are crushed, it is difficult for you to cause damage to them, and it is very difficult to deal with. Therefore, the eyes they looked at Lin You also became solemn, and they did not dare to have any contempt. Thank you, young man. At this time, the swordsman master whose body was cut off on the stage suddenly spoke. Lin You, who was immersed in the state just now, couldn't help but wake up and looked at him. I saw that the swordsman master's eyes were clear, and there was a trace of humanity in his eyes. Thanks to you, I can once again experience the feeling of fighting with all my strength. This thing should have passed the test of the highest level to obtain it, but now you have all the conditions to obtain it. Before it disappears, I will give it to you together. When the voice fell, his body began to dissipate quickly, leaving only a golden light that shot into Lin Yu's eyebrows and disappeared. Dang dash. The two broken swords fell to the ground, making a crisp sound. He also asked Lin You to regain his senses. He was puzzled, completely ignorant of the meaning of the sword master's last words. But it didn't take long for him to wonder when a reminder sounded in his mind. Congratulations, you have obtained the certificate of Tyrant. Please go to the 10th floor for the final test and activate it. The evidence of the Tyrant? What the hell? Lin You was startled for a moment, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Could it be that this is what the swordsman master said, you have to clear the top level to get it? But no matter how he sensed it, he couldn't sense the existence of that thing. It seems that it really needs to be activated after the final test, as the prompt said. I was thinking. From the crowd below, there was a sudden exclamation. Qing Feng, who was in the other direction, had already defeated the opponent at this time, and had recovered, ready to challenge the final test. The final reward is mine. Qing Feng glanced at Lin You in the distance, with a proud expression. He is different from Lin You. It was entirely by virtue of the old lord's powerful strength, coupled with the advantage of his own race's flame control, that several rounds of long-range explosions blasted the opponent to death. So it takes less time than Lin You, and it doesn't consume as much as Lin You. This is not. Lin You just finished the battle. He had already got up and slowly walked towards the 10th floor platform. And on the 10th floor platform where he was located, there was an axe that exuded a heavy aura, and it was inlaid in the center of the platform. Even if it is far away, you can feel a heavy aura enveloping the surroundings, as if the entire space will be suppressed by it. Lin You was shocked when he saw this. he also ignored the doubts in his heart. After using the power of the rules to simply treat the injury, he immediately took the knife and walked towards the 10th floor. It seems that the final reward should be taken by Qingfeng. Alas, it's a pity, although that guy is very strong, he is still a little worse than a veteran lord like Qingfeng. Looking at how wounded he is all over his body, I'm afraid that the battle just now took a lot of money. In this state, it's hard to say whether you can pass the 10th floor test. Even if you don't pass, it's amazing to be able to get to the 10th floor. The lords below were talking a lot, and their words were full of regret. After all, they saw the battle just now. Compared with Qingfeng's attribute suppression and racial superiority, it was obvious that Lin Yu's fierce and domineering fighting style was more popular, and they couldn't help but applaud. But even so, they still had to admit it. In terms of comprehensive strength, Qingfeng is clearly superior, which is understandable. It seems that something is wrong, look up. Suddenly, a shout interrupted everyone's discussion. The lords were stunned for a moment, and subconsciously looked at the high platform. However, he found that he stepped on the 10th floor of Qingfeng first, and at this time he was half kneeling on the edge of the platform, sweating profusely. Overwhelmed by a boundless force. What's the matter? Why did he suddenly kneel on the ground? Could it be that you suffered internal injuries during the battle just now? No, it seems to be the axe. Fuck. What is that? In exclamation, all the lords turned their attention to the center of the platform. I saw that the mountain-opening axe did not know where it started, but it turned into a huge phantom, standing proudly on the platform, exuding a real terrifying coercion. Even a lord as strong as Qingfeng was directly crushed to the ground by this coercion. She could only rely on her extraordinary will to support her with difficulty and move toward the center of the platform step by step. Could this be the 10th floor test? Soon. The lords saw the clues on the platform and were even more shocked. I thought that the last floor would become an SSS-level opponent like before. But now they found that they were wrong. And it's terribly wrong. Even Qingfeng's strength is so difficult, it is several times more terrifying than an SSS-level opponent. I am afraid that if you want to be recognized by the Sword of the Dead, you have to pass the test of the axe and reach the center of the platform. Think of this. Everyone couldn't help but look at another platform, and Lin You, who was also on the 10th floor. Lin You naturally saw clearly what happened on Qingfeng's side. While surprised in his heart, he also became extremely solemn. Put away the ice soul sword and take a deep breath. He slowly raised his foot and stepped onto the 10th floor platform. Boom! A roar exploded in his mind. The moment he stepped on the 10th floor platform, the picture in front of Lin You suddenly changed, turning into a terrifying battlefield where swords and swords intersect. Everywhere he looked, he was covered in flames of war. There were madly fighting warriors everywhere, and the earth was dyed red with blood. Kill! Come on! Roars and shouts of killing kept echoing in my ears. A powerful and suffocating killing breath rushed towards his face, forcing him to stand almost unsteadily. The next second, however, he found that he was standing on top of the dragon behind one of the teams. I do not know when there was an extra set of purple gold dragon robes, and a majestic crown on his head. These are all the soldiers under his command? Lin Yu's eyes trembled, watching the battle between the two armies that were close at hand. The extremely strong killing and aura, like a river overturning the sea, overwhelming the sky and sweeping towards him from all directions. As if he wanted to completely drown him and drag him into this endless slaughter. There was a faint desire to kill in his heart. Humph! Lin Yu snorted coldly, and a fascinating light burst out in his eyes. When it comes to killing people, he has killed a lot along the way, and he has never been soft-hearted. It's ridiculous to want to disturb his mind even in a mere battlefield. Now, he finally understands why the swordsman master said just now that he has all the conditions to pass the 10th floor. It turned out that the platform he was on was a test of a person's mind. Just after the battle just now, his mind was greatly improved. If it were replaced by a person with a weak mind, I am afraid that he would have been swallowed by the breath just now, and his spirit would have been damaged. Think about it. Lin You stepped out directly, and the golden light in his eyebrows exploded. Actually, the picture in front of him was instantly shattered and reappeared on the platform. Without any hindrance, he slowly walked towards the broadsword that radiated blood. This change immediately caused an uproar underneath. What's the situation? I am not wrong, right? He passed the test so quickly? How did he do that? At this time, the platform Lin You was on was already shrouded in the surging killing intent and blood light emitted by the big knife, which looked even more terrifying than Qingfeng's. There is a soul-stirring feeling, but Lin You is better. He just went up and stood for a while, and then, like a normal person, he strolled towards the big sword in a leisurely manner, so that they wouldn't be shocked. But right now, they were attracted by Lin Yu's actions. Because at this time, Lin You had come to the center of the platform and pulled up the blood-colored sword. In a blink of an eye, the aura of blood on the platform dissipated, and it was all retracted into the big sword, as if it had never appeared before. At the same time, a series of reminders sounded in Lin Yu's mind. Congratulations, you have been recognized by the Sword of the Dead, and the Certificate of Tyrant has been successfully activated. The reward will be a random treasure and a rare equipment token. The title function is enabled, please go to the territory interface to check it yourself. Title? What? Lin You looked puzzled and looked at the big knife in his hand. At the moment when the prompt fell, the big sword quickly dissipated, turning into energy into the golden light between his eyebrows, and gradually condensing into a finger-sized mark of the tyrant's sword, which disappeared. After that, a string of information came into his eyes. Proof of Tyrant. Tyrant is majestic and inviolable, ignores all spiritual attacks, reduces the attributes of enemies within the range by 5%, and increases the power of faith by 100%. Transfer. Note, the test is divided into 5, namely, the Tyrant, the Wise, the Brave, the Benevolent, and the Loyal, which can only be obtained by passing the corresponding test, and each person can only have one at a time. After reading the content of the message, Lin You was completely shocked. Is this so-called Certificate of Tyrant actually a title? No matter the title, the attributes are still unbelievably strong. It is simply an enhanced version of Territory Glory. When he was at the top of the kingdom at Tier 6, the honor of Peak Lord was to increase the speed of acquiring the power of faith by 100%. The perverted effect, he still has an unforgettable aftertaste to this day. Unexpectedly, in the 8th Order battlefield, there will be something with similar effects, and it is more powerful. Thus, it will be much easier for him to acquire the power of faith. At that time, the basic strength gap with the old lord will be quickly narrowed. It really deserves to be the #1 battlefield. Even the rewards are much better than expected. In addition to this title, he also received treasures and rare token rewards, all of which have been distributed to his personal space. But before he could check it, the platform under his feet started to collapse rapidly. Simultaneously, elsewhere on the battlefield, several other battlefield ruins that were exactly the same as this sword tomb, www.lightnovel.com, also began to shake. All the platforms representing the test of the road to the Overlord collapsed, and only the platforms in the other 4 directions remained intact. That is to say, as long as someone in each direction passes the final test, other lords will also completely lose the qualification to challenge in that direction. 5 directions are 5 rewards. Now that there is 1 less, there are 4 remaining. Immediately, the lord below became anxious. On the other hand, some people put their eyes on Lin You, who had just received the reward, with a stern expression. Lin You knew that if he left Jianzhong like this, he would probably be targeted by many people. Although he wasn't afraid, he still didn't want to waste time with so much trouble. Before the platform completely collapsed, he immediately used the territorial teleportation formation function to condense a teleportation formation with a radius of 5 meters under his feet. The distance to the territory is 500 kilometers, and the teleportation consumes 250,000 mana, Do you want to teleport? 250,000 mana is nothing to him now. Without any hesitation, he answered directly, teleport. Not for a while. The teleportation array is condensed. With a swish, he disappeared directly in place, causing the lords below to look at each other in dismay, and they were very unwilling. But you can only focus on the remaining 4 tests. It is a test of wisdom, courage, benevolence, and loyalty. And what Qingfeng is facing now is the Road of the Brave, a test that tests a person's level of bravery. When Lin You teleported back to the territory, it was almost noon. It was just over an hour before the arrival of the second beast tide. So he didn't go out anymore, but hurriedly came to the world tree and opened his personal space to check it out. As predicted. There are 2 more things than when I first went out. A crystal lens like a scope, and a golden token with plant patterns. Needless to say, the token is of course the unique golden color of rare arms. And that lens looks like a military treasure. Without thinking much, check its properties directly. This is the most simple and roughest type of military treasure that Lin You has ever seen. Just 2 sentences summed up all its effects. This is probably the commonality of enhanced treasures. Anyway, it is to strengthen a certain attribute, it's that simple and straightforward. Moreover, the effect of strengthening the attack distance and skill range is very good, which makes him feel bright. The armies he can attack the farthest now are the Banshee Vine and Pea Shooter, except for a few royal families. The 8th tier has an attack distance of about 80 meters, and skills are calculated separately. Next are flower essences, mushrooms, and dandelions, which are almost 40 meters long. Of course, dandelion is a special case, because its seeds can fly and can be transferred, and the actual attack distance is much larger. The attack distance here refers to their controllable distance. Let's use the mushroom troops first. Lin You thought about it for a while, and finally decided to give the secret treasure to the mushroom class. Because of this, the explosive mushrooms of the mushroom class will also be thrown farther, and the explosion range will be wider, which can just improve the ability to deal with group battles such as animal hordes. Next, Lin You took a deep breath and looked at the token with anticipation. From the token engraved on it, it can be seen at a glance that this is a rare plant token. It is also the 4th rare unit he has obtained so far. It was inevitable that she was a little excited. Although rare units don't improve him much, the skills that can't stand it are good, and it can perfectly match his mutation ability. Just like the Willow and the Spirit of Nature, they provided him with very powerful skills in the early and middle stages. Even after unlocking new units, the power of rules can use more skills, as long as it is not a skill that has transcended the rules of peace, or a skill that requires plant characteristics to divide, infinite proliferation. He can basically use it. Let's see what it is first. Lin, you couldn't wait to pick up the token and click to check it. Then an information interface popped up. Calamity Sword Bamboo? Lin You looked surprised. This unit is only 1 word different from the 6th order Castle Demon Bamboo he had seen in the main city points exchange before. It seems that it should be the advanced form of that unit. Moreover, he rarely sees bamboo-type troops, and he has never seen it in other plant lords. Unexpectedly, the type of arms given by the Sword Tomb test was also related to swords, which surprised him a little. Most importantly, this is still an 8th tier unit. After unlocking, you can directly recruit to fight without spending a lot of time on research. For him, who only has 2 types of 8th tier troops to recruit now, it is undoubtedly a relief. What nonsense, just choose to use it. Use. When the voice fell, the token in his hand turned into a streamer and merged into the world tree beside him, and then a reminder that the unit was unlocked successfully sounded. Lin You got up immediately, opened the recruitment interface, and directly recruited a new unit. Swish. The light flashed. A green bamboo with a height of almost 8 meters and covered with sword-shaped leaves appeared in front of him. Unlike ordinary bamboo, Calamity Sword Bamboo does not have small end branches. Instead, it was a thick bamboo, the top of which was as sharp as a knife, and it looked like a sharp sword tip. What a powerful skill. After reading the attributes, Lin Yu's eyes lit up. This calamity sword bamboo skill is much stronger than he imagined. At critical moments, energy control and healing reduction is absolutely fatal to combat. Combined with the surrounding sword energy, it is equivalent to a large-scale field control skill. It can also be transformed into a sword, providing group attacks for melee units, which is a perfect match with the Thorn Shield Black Turtle. As such, his ancient war tree can hold a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, which greatly improves the combat ability, and does not affect the use of other skills by Calamity Sword Bamboo. Considering that he doesn't have any extra arms now, Lin You temporarily let Qin Gang equip the bamboo sword that this Calamity Sword Bamboo transformed into, and gave it an improved attack method. Then 2 more sword bamboos were recruited to defend the territory. As for the shield turtle, it can only be mutated after the 8th Order Demon Emperor Dragon is researched. Don't say it yet. The Calamity Sword Bamboo in the form of a sword is 8 meters long and much larger, which is very suitable for Qin Gang's tall body. Hold it in your hand and wave it hard. A fierce sword chi swayed out, cutting the entire piece of air in front of him, and at a glance, he knew that it was powerful. After all, this sword chi inherits Qin Gang's own attack, that is, it is affected by its strength attribute, and it also has a 20% armor-piercing effect. Okay, it's time to prepare for the beast tide. After studying the new arms, Lin You immediately patted his and stood up. First go to the army base to bind the secret treasure to the mushroom army, and then start to take the goblin sages to the hillside outside the territory and start to build bunkers with plants. Although with his current strength, he no longer needs to be afraid of the beast tide. But it would be nice to be a little more relaxed, so as not to be caught off guard when encountering any troublesome monsters. And as noon approached, the lords who went out to explore also gradually rushed back to the territory. There is direct teleportation of the teleportation array, and those who do not have a teleportation array ride mounts, making the entire battlefield lively. Because of their return, the silent chat channel began to flood with a lot of news. And a lot of it is about the ruins of the battlefield. Damn, this beast tide is really tossing people. I was just about to clear the 8th floor. You're fine, I can't even squeeze in that challenge. I heard that there will be a title reward in addition to treasures and rare tokens in the last level of customs clearance. Fuck. Really or not? Titles are notoriously difficult to obtain, just like personal honors. It was said by Tang Wentian of the Eternal Realm himself. He had cleared the path of the wise before and won the title that his mental strength was increased by 5% and his faith acquisition speed was doubled. Hey! So perverted. Hearing what the insider told, the other lords were shocked. It's okay to improve the lord's own attributes, at least it's not so outrageous. But double the speed of gaining faith is different. This is the real effect of speeding up the speed of strength improvement, and it can only be obtained when the ranking of each country reaches the top. Looking at the entire continent, there are only so many people. It really made them envious, but they couldn't be jealous. Because those who have tried to challenge the ruins of the battlefield basically know the abnormal difficulty of that test. It's not something ordinary people can live with. Those who have the ability to get this title are all the top lords in all walks of life, and they deserve this honor. Lin You is preparing fortifications. Naturally, I saw the chatter of the lords, and I also learned about the situation at the ruins. What surprised him was that in just over an hour, 3 tests have already been passed, and only the last 2 are left. And according to insiders, other titles seem to be obtained by adding attributes and beliefs, but they are all single attributes added. By comparison, his effect of lowering all the enemy's attributes is actually the best one. Fortunately, that direction was chosen. Lin You looked fortunate. If he hadn't reacted quickly enough to get on the platform first, I'm afraid the result would have been different. It's a pity that a person can only get one of these 5 titles. Otherwise, he had to pass all the tests, and the 5 titles had to be exchanged. Think about it, He just closed the interface and started to work on the fortifications seriously. Until noon. The chat of the lords was finally interrupted by a loud roar of beasts. The second wave of beasts after the battle of 10,000 realms opened, finally came. Lin You, who had the first experience, was not flustered at all. Immediately returned to the territory, arranged the troops, and at the same time arranged the 2 calamity sword bamboos that have just been recruited to be stationed in 2 directions. Then it didn't take long. A large horde of beasts appeared in the sound of rumbling footsteps, frantically emerged from the depths of the battlefield, and collided with his army of plants. A war, and thus kicked off. However, what everyone doesn't know is, just when they were fighting hard in the battlefield of 10,000 realms, in the ancient world that intersects with the eternal world, a major event is happening. Boom! A loud noise like the 9 heavens' divine thunder exploded above the high sky of the ancient world. Over the entire ancient world, the wind and clouds were surging, and the space collapsed. Dozens of arrogant figures, armed with arms all over the sky, fought frantically in the collapsed void. Wherever he went, the lightning burst, and the momentum shook the sky. Like a doomsday catastrophe. Qianji, your eternal realm is really going to destroy our eternal realm today. With an angry shout, it exploded in the sky. An old man with beard and hair was besieged by 2 great emperors in turn. His eyes were full of endless anger. Even the other great emperors of the ancient world were all seriously injured at this time, with heavy casualties in their arms. Almost the entire void was dyed red by their blood. Ha ha ha, how about destroying your ancient world? It's just that you are too weak. Above the void, Emperor Qianji, who was attacking, laughed wildly. Black suffocating energy surged around his body, his robes danced without wind, and his whole person was like a black shining sun. And his aura was actually several times stronger than before. Even the other great emperors of the eternal realm are like this. One by one, they were so powerful that they almost overwhelmed the great emperor of the ancient realm without the strength to fight back. This is not the most important thing. What surprised them the most was that the number of eternal world great emperors has doubled. More than half of them were unfamiliar faces they had never seen before. Originally, the eternal realm was one of the 10 realms. The strength is stronger than the ancient world. Now that the number of great emperors has soared, the balance between the 2 worlds has finally been broken, and all the great emperors of the ancient world have been driven to a dead end. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise that penetrated the heavens and the earth sounded in a certain corner of the void. An ancient world emperor was besieged by 2 eternal world emperors. His body was directly smashed to pieces, and he fell from the air. Zuafeng. The eyes of the remaining great emperors in the ancient world were torn apart, and they wanted to rescue them, but they were immediately stopped by their opponents, and the situation took a turn for the worse. They know that if things go on like this, it will only be a matter of time before the ancient world will be destroyed. Immediately, the old man with beard and hair shouted behind him, "Go and inform the other realms." All the time. There is some kind of check and balance between all worlds. Especially between adjacent realms, they would not watch each other grow bigger. If the eternal realm is destroyed, the strength of the eternal realm will definitely be greatly improved, and more emperors will appear. This is definitely something that other surrounding realms don't want to see. It's such a simple truth. This is also the reason why the eternal realm, although strong, has never done anything to other surrounding realms. Because they are also worried that several realms will unite, and even they will not be able to obtain any benefits. But now, the eternal world broke this balance with its own hands. Aren't you afraid that other realms will rise up and attack them? And what shocked them was, the strength of these eternal world emperors has suddenly skyrocketed for some reason, and even the number has become so exaggerated. Where did they get so many complete godheads? As his thoughts flashed, one of the great emperors of the ancient realm directly forced his opponent to retreat, escaped into the void, and fled in the direction of other realms. As long as the news spreads, the great emperors in other surrounding realms will definitely not sit idly by and start putting pressure on the eternal realm. At that time, no matter how strong the eternal world is, it will have to bow its head. This is their only way to survive. But it was beyond their expectations. Seeing the escaped Great Emperor, Qianji Great Emperor and the others did not intend to pursue them, but instead a sneer appeared on the corner of their mouths. Seemed to laugh at their struggles. This change suddenly changed the expressions of several great emperors in the ancient world, and had a bad premonition in their hearts. Boom! What dash! Suddenly, a scream resounded through the sky. The great emperor of the ancient realm who escaped was actually blasted out of the void, like a kite with a broken string, and flew back in ruins. And on the edge of the realm, several purple figures slowly appeared, bringing the demons in the sky, completely blocking the road leading to the outside of the boundary. At the moment of seeing those figures, the pupils of several great emperors in the ancient world suddenly shrank, and their expressions changed greatly. Magic Origin Realm. Why are you here? The Demon Realm is one of the 10 realms along with the Eternal Realm. They never expected that in addition to the Eternal Realm, even the Demon Origin Realm would come. This is to kill them in the ancient world. Give it up. The connection between the ancient world and the outside world has been cut off by us, and even if other realms discover it, it will be too late. Emperor Qianji stood in the void and said proudly. Do you really want to do this? The remaining few ancient world emperors clenched their fists and their faces were extremely gloomy. An eternal world has already caused them heavy casualties. Now there is another demon origin realm, and the two top 10 realms are united with each other. I'm afraid after today, the heaven of the 10,000 worlds is about to begin to change, but even so, they still have to fight. Because behind them is their lifeblood and their roots. Even if they die, these people must never be allowed to step half a step. Come on together. Fight with them. He only heard the heroic shout for the first-haired old man, his body erupted with rays of light, and the power of terrifying rules was burning around him. Several other great emperors also regarded death as if they were at home, and their expressions were tragic. Directly ignited the power of all rules in the body. This moment, the entire sky of the ancient world shone with light. Like the fire of life that is about to come to an end, it ignites the last fire for this continent. The other side. In the battlefield of 10,000 realms. The ancient world lords who were fighting in the major battlefields also quickly received a reminder that the continent's luck was being deprived. When the system reminded them that the ancient world would be destroyed on the battlefield of 10,000 realms, all the lords of the ancient world exploded and started to attack the lords of other realms frantically. And a shocking news, like a hurricane, swept across the battlefields in an instant. Everyone, have you heard? All the luck of the ancient world has been taken away. Fuck. All deprived? Isn't the battle of 10,000 realms not over yet? I've also heard other people say that it seems that the lords of the ancient world are crazy now, and are attacking other lords everywhere. This is my testimony. I was hunted down by the lords of the ancient world just now. They seem to want to pull us into the water before we die. Hey. So terrifying? What happened in the ancient world? The appearance of this news can be said to be a one stone, stirring up 1,000 waves. Let all the lords who are on the battlefield put down their affairs one after another, and they start to discuss in shock, and the number of messages sent is almost more than half a day combined. Lin You, who had just dealt with the last wave of beasts, was naturally attracted by this topic, and his eyes were solemn. The ancient world was deprived of luck during the opening of the battlefield? And is it all deprived? This made him immediately think of a possibility. That is, the great emperor of the ancient world, the regiment is destroyed. Exactly. Only this possibility can explain this matter. Moreover, he had heard before that the great emperor, as the most peak existence on the continent, could easily cross the space between boundaries. Therefore, it is not affected by the rules of the Wanjia battlefield and will not be teleported to the battlefield. That is to say, when these low-level lords were teleporting to the battlefield, an accident happened in the ancient world, causing all the great emperors to fall. The moment he came to this conclusion, Lin Yu's heart suddenly shook violently. There are checks and balances between boundaries. He really couldn't think of what kind of power could be able to destroy the great emperor of the world. If the other party targets the primordial realm next, won't they suffer? Not just him. At this time, the lords of all walks of life in the battlefield were also panicking, for fear that the next disaster would be their own realm. Especially those realms that are very close to the ancient world, they are scared to death, and at the same time they have to guard against the crazy counterattack of the ancient world lords. Just like that, while worried, the beast tide quickly passed. Lin Yu glanced at the small wave of monsters left around the territory, and shouted to the bottom, "Hurry up and get rid of these monsters." After receiving the order, Qin Gang immediately waved the bamboo sword in his hand, slashing out a sword energy and slicing the monsters in front of him into two pieces. The sword chi casts its force unabated, sinks deep into the ground, and disappears. And the few remaining monsters. It was continuously cut by the bamboo leaf sword chi bursting out of calamity sword bamboo, and it was cut into pieces in a blink of an eye. It is not slow in other directions. Especially the Mushroom Demon King, who got the bonus of the new secret treasure, directly led the Mushroom Airdrop troop to bomb back and forth on the field. The huge explosion range blew up all the monsters on the field. So far, all the monsters were cleaned up, leaving only the corpses all over the floor. Lin Yu opened the ranking and took a look. His magical energy has risen from more than 60 million to 98 million. A full 35 million more, faster than the first beast tide. And his ranking also rose 2 places, to 6th. This was also due to the delay in the ruins of the battlefield for half a day. As for the kill list, as expected, the increase is very slow. The first place only rose to 10 heads in one day. After all, the lords who can come here are not weak, they can be defeated, but it is not easy to kill them. Not enough, Lin Yu also noticed. The first place on the kill list and magic power list is Michael. The magic energy directly reached the level of 150 million. Number 1 on the double list, this guy who is known as the strongest rank 8th in the Holy Light realm is not weak. Moreover, he is from the angel race, and it seems that he naturally has a strong affinity for Holy Light magic. If there is a chance, I can go and meet this guy. Let's go, and dispose of the body first. After closing the interface, Lin Yu left the territory with the piranha team to devour all the corpses outside. A total of more than 30,000 corpses were swallowed up, and his experience with 17 piranhas finally broke through to more than 4,000. The calm attribute has been greatly improved. It is only a little short of the full value attribute of common arms. It is his current experience with the fastest increase in the troop. As such, cannibals no longer have a disadvantage against other lord units. Moreover, his newly obtained Certificate of Tyrant can also reduce the enemy's attributes by 5%, and the dragon power of the Demon Emperor Dragon is 10%. Counting the all attribute aura gain, that's a full 70% increase. Has surpassed the level of many old lords. Even if the blessing of Godhead fragments is removed, he is not much worse now. Therefore, the harvest of this trip to the battlefield of 10,000 realms is still very huge. Next, it was just a matter of looking for the scroll that Zhong Lei told him before, which could increase the level of the troops. As long as he has that scroll, he will no longer have to worry about the upgrade of royal troops. At least before the 10th order. Okay, recover and get ready to go. Clean up the corpse and save some materials for forging. Lin Yu went out with the troops. At the same time, he secretly paid attention to the trend of the ancient world. Although the eternal realm is not near the primordial realm, it is still important to pay attention to this kind of important event. Save the time when things go wrong. In case of encountering those mad ancient world lords, it would be even more difficult. Because everyone knows it. People who don't want to die are the most terrifying. All the way. No accident happened. Lin Yu successfully brought his troops to the area where the battlefield remains. Glancing at the sword mound surrounded by death aura in the distance, he did not stop, and continued to move towards the depths. Today is the second day of the opening of the battlefield. In deeper places, many powerful lords have begun to explore, and there are traces of battles everywhere on the road. I can often see the corpses of monsters scattered on the ground, and some of the blood has not dried yet. It seems that we need to hurry up. Otherwise, if there is not even a single lord monster left, he can only miss the treasures on the battlefield, or go to the treasures from others. After thinking about it, he withdrew his gaze and prepared to call the team to speed up. Unexpectedly, on the plain in the distance, there was a sudden sound of fierce fighting, interrupting his movements. Is someone fighting? Let's go and have a look. Lin You hesitated for a while, then immediately asked the team to change direction and approached the location where the voice came from. Gradually, a large group of figures were fighting fiercely on the plain, and they caught his eye. It turned out to be dozens of lords, surrounded by the corpse of a lord monster, frantically banging. There were shouts and roars everywhere, and the whole scene was almost a mess. Are you robbing treasures? Lin Yu's eyes lit up, and he looked at the center of the battle circle. Sure enough, 3 lords were enveloped by a familiar golden beam of light. Isn't this a sign of the appearance of battlefield treasures? Needless to say, the treasure that the lord monster exploded should be on those 3 people. Quick! It's over there. The signs of battlefield treasures haven't dissipated. It seems that someone is already robbing it. Let's go quickly. Right at this time. Other lords also seem to have received the news, and they keep coming from other places to join the battle in the distance. And the team that the 3 lords were in was surrounded by surging lords and troops, and they couldn't run away even if they wanted to. Not to mention the teleportation formation. The formation was interrupted by a long-range attack as soon as it was lit, giving them no chance at all. Damn it! There are more and more people. What should we do? Next to one of the treasures, a youth from the undead department kept summoning skeletons to resist attacks from all directions. And beside him, there are 3 companions who are not weak. However, in the face of the siege of so many lords, he could only retreat and support with difficulty. If it goes on like this, there will only be more and more people. If it really doesn't work, let's throw the treasure away? The only female lord in the team said anxiously. The troops around her are the water elements of the element system. He is trying his best to treat several troops. But even so, their units were still unable to resist the siege of so many lords, and casualties continued to appear, and they were about to be breached. Everyone, work harder. Blast their troops away, and the treasure is ours. Kill me. Outside the encirclement, the attacking lord roared again and attacked violently. Everywhere he looked, there were attacks from the sky and surging units. Divided into 3 waves and slammed wildly on the plain. Finally, the team where one of the treasures was located could no longer support it, so they had to throw the treasure into the sky and choose Manga to protect themselves. In an instant, nearly half of the lords were attracted by the brilliance of the treasure, and they turned around and rushed to the treasure. Unexpectedly. At this moment, a huge black shadow suddenly appeared, roaring from the sky. The speed was so fast that he grabbed the treasure and flew away from the place, flying towards the outside of the battle circle. Taking a closer look, it was an 8th order plant dragon. Fuck. Stop him. Put things down. Follow me. Seeing that the treasures they were about to get disappeared, the lords fry the pot in an instant and let their flying units chase after them. Many of them even reached the 9th order. But what they didn't expect was, the plant dragon did not fly far, but landed in a large group of plants on the edge of the plain. The lords who were still chasing suddenly slowed down and looked at a proud figure standing among the flora. The expressions of several of the lords were even more astonished. It's him. Why did he come here too? I know him. He's the one who cleared the road of Tyrant. The one who passed the test of the ruins first? Hearing the exclamations of several people, all the lords stopped in their tracks, and a look of astonishment appeared on their faces. After a whole afternoon of news spread, The news of the battlefield ruins has already spread completely, and it has even reached the point where everyone knows it. In particular, the 3 people who have passed the test at present are even more famous and have attracted countless people's comments. As the first person to pass the test, Lin You was naturally remembered by many lords present at the time. Now seeing him appear again, these lords were immediately shocked and did not dare to act rashly. After all, offending a powerful enemy for a battlefield treasure is not worth it. So soon, some of the lords retreated in a hurry, not daring to the treasures in Lin Yu's hands. The other lords who were hesitating saw that there were fewer and fewer people around, and they were not sure that they would be able to obtain benefits from Lin Yu's large plant. He hesitated and struggled for a long time, but in the end he was unwilling to retreat and joined the remaining 2 treasures. And this scene. It happened to be seen by the 4 people who were struggling to support in the distance. After feeling the breath of Lin You, the young plant-type youth in the team suddenly brightened his eyes and shouted excitedly at Lin You. "Brother! Big brother! Are you from the primitive realm? Help! We can give you the treasure." Exactly. 4 of the team. Just like Lin You, he is the lord of the primitive realm. Hearing his cry, even Lin You was stunned. Originally, he wanted to leave after grabbing a treasure, but he didn't expect to meet people from the same realm, and there were 4 when he touched it. This is a bit too coincidental. But since he is from the same realm and can come to battlefield number 1 again, he must have a lot of luck on his back, so he can't just sit back and ignore it. What's more, the other party said that he would give him the treasure, so he couldn't care less. After all, things that are picked up for nothing should not be discarded for nothing. Immediately, he led the team closer. When the lords who were besieging them saw this, their expressions suddenly sank. Just now, because he was afraid of Lin Yu's strength, he didn't take action. But now he wants to get his hands on the second treasure? Friend, it's a bit too much for you to do this? Don't think that you can all the treasures with your strength. That is, no matter how powerful you are, do you still want to fight against so many of us? It's okay to let them go, the treasures stay. Lin Yu's actions finally aroused the dissatisfaction of the lords, and they all looked at him coldly. He even set aside some branches to block his way. It seemed that if he dared to take a step closer, he would be attacked by all the lords, and the atmosphere in the entire field instantly cooled down. If it is changed to the past, Lin You might give in because of the crowd. But now, are you threatening me? Lin You smiled disdainfully and looked around the arena. The lord who met his line of sight couldn't help shivering, but he felt an extremely strong killing intent. Even the surroundings of Lin Yu's body exuded a faint aura of blood. This is the hidden effect attached to the certificate of the tyrant, which can change a person's breath. In other words, it was to completely release the murderous aura that Lin Yu had accumulated in his heart. Cannon. He called softly to his side and called the cannon. The dark muzzle was aimed at the lords on the opposite side. Finally, a self-sufficient demon lord stood up. Humph. What if I threaten you? Are you still, boom? An explosion interrupted the lord's speech. The lord originally wanted to say something, but the next second, his pupils suddenly shrank. Almost without even thinking about it, he activated the protective skills he was wearing and flashed to the side. Whoosh! The bullets, surrounded by dragon flames, tearing apart the space, swept past him with unparalleled power. Before he even waited for him to react, the body of the Ninth Order demon behind him was blasted open, and it exploded into a cloud of blood. The bullet continued unabated, and after it shot through the bodies of more than a dozen Tier 8 demons one after another, it finally stopped and fell to the ground. Quiet. The whole scene was silent. Everyone's eyes widened, looking at the Ninth Order soldier whose body had been blown away in half, and the string of corpses behind it. It all happened so suddenly, so much so that they didn't respond for a while. He even forgot to continue attacking the 2 teams with treasures. But in their hearts at the moment, a storm was set off. Just one hit. Just killed a 9th tier unit in 1 second? He even shot through more than a dozen 8th Order bodies? Is this really something that tier 8 troops can do? The demon lord who reacted fell to the ground with a soft foot, only feeling that he had walked through the gate of hell. If the blow just now hit him, it would definitely be him who died. Even defensive equipment is useless. Looking at his waist again, the ninth order equipment that he spent a lot of money on had already appeared a lot of cracks. It's just a shockwave, so terrifying. Guru. The lords couldn't help swallowing, and looked at Lin You in horror, not daring to get closer. When the 4 lords of the primitive realm saw this, they immediately reacted, and hurriedly left the crowd and came to Lin You. Several people were both excited and shocked at this time, and they didn't even dare to get too close to Lin You. It was the plant-type youth who was more daring, and quickly said gratefully. Brother, thanks to you, we were able to get out of this predicament, thank you so much. While grateful, the young man looked at the troops around Lin You, and the more he looked, the more frightened he became. He is also the lord of the plant department, so he naturally knows more about plant troops than others. But he had never seen such a strange-looking unit. It seems that the characteristics of several plants are mixed together. It looks very strange and has a different momentum. But right now, his eyes were attracted by the cannon beside Lin You, and he was slightly taken aback. This is the royal family. The young man's subconscious cry caught Lin Yu's attention. Immediately put all the royal arms into the source space, and his expression became a little unpleasant. Since the last time he saw the demon body called Heavenly Sage in the desert area, Lin You has been intentionally hiding his royal troops. Before the 7th level, the Lord has no way to go to the main plane of monsters, and has no chance to encounter the body of those demons. Naturally, he does not know the meaning of the royal family. But above the 7th level is different. Although the chance of encountering the demon body is very small, it is impossible for anyone to see it. Before he figured out what it had to do with his royal arm, he didn't really want others to know that he had a royal arm. Even in normal times. He also relies on the huge number of troops to cover up the existence of the royal family, or block the sight of other lords. Unexpectedly, the fact that someone really knew about the royal family made him feel a killing intent in his heart. The plant-type youth felt the change in his expression, and was shocked, knowing that he had accidentally said something he shouldn't have said. He hurriedly said, "Don't get me wrong, I just heard about it from my mother emperor." Queen Mother? Is this guy the son of the emperor? If that's the case, then it's a bit tricky. Lin Yu's heart became serious. After all, they belong to the same continent. If he does something to this guy, he will not be able to escape if he wants to. Which emperor's son are you? Lin You couldn't help asking. Emperor Shangyue is my mother, and my name is Li Ku. The young man replied quickly, without any arrogance, because of his identity. Instead, his eyes glowed, and he looked at Lin You with admiration. Emperor Shangyue? Lin Yu's eyes moved. He had heard of the name of Emperor Shangyue. She is one of the few female emperors on the primitive continent. The Shangyue Empire, which he rules, is located in the southern part of the primitive continent, separated from the Xingyao Empire by a quarter of the continent. Unexpectedly, this emperor actually has a son, and his age is similar to himself. Only, why does this emperor's son look so unreasonable? I was thinking. Li Ku continued to say, "Brother, you were so powerful just now that you managed to suppress so many lords at once. Is that the strength of Wang?" In the words, there is a strong sense of shock and excitement. It was like seeing something extraordinary. Lin You frowned slightly when he heard this. The son of the emperor obviously knew about the royal family. He had a lot of things he wanted to ask, but he didn't ask them directly. Instead, he secretly glanced at the 3 people behind Li Ku. What he didn't expect was, Li Ku's ability to observe words is very good. With just one look, he seemed to understand what he was thinking. He was stunned for a moment, then immediately turned around and said to the people around him, "Let's go here first for our action today. I have something to discuss with this eldest brother, and we will gather at the old place tomorrow morning. Okay, be careful yourself." It just so happens that I have to go back to the territory to replenish my troops. Then we'll see you tomorrow. In the battle just now, they lost a lot of troops. It's really not suitable to continue to stay outside. So after saying goodbye to Li Ku and taking a deep look at Lin You, the three of them left with the rest of the troops. One of them even activated the teleportation array directly and disappeared in place with a swipe. Let's go to a place where no one is around and talk. Lin Yu looked at the Lord who was still vigilant in the distance and said. It's all up to Big Brother's arrangement. Li Ku said with a smile, hurriedly followed Lin Yu with his troops, and then asked, Brother, I still don't know what your name is. Lin Yu. Lin Yu? Then I'll call you Brother Yu in the future. Lin Yu didn't speak, it was a default. The behavior of the son of the emperor is really beyond his expectations. But he was not worried that the other party pretended to be close relatives to harm him. With his current perception strength, he can completely chop off this guy's head before he makes a move, so the two of them were at peace with each other. He went all the way like this, until there was no one else. Lin Yu stopped and said. Okay, there's no one else here, tell me everything you know about the royal family, okay? Of course there is no problem. Li Ku nodded again and again. Just now, Lin Yu resolved the crisis for them, which was a big favor for them. Naturally, this favor must be repaid. After thinking for a while, he said, Actually, I don't know much about the royal family. I just heard my mother mention it by chance. She said that 10,000 years ago, there was a genius lord who suppressed 10,000 worlds. In less than 10 years, he rushed to the emperor's realm. It is said that that person even successfully crossed the emperor's realm and reached an unimaginable level. And he has troops around him, they belong to the royal family. Li Ku vividly told Lin Yu everything he knew. His face was full of admiration and yearning. Suppressing all worlds with the power of one person, the arrogance in it, just thinking about it makes people extremely excited, and it is difficult to control oneself. But I don't know. Lin Yu frowned after hearing what he said. 10,000 years ago? Suppressing the heavens? How could the royal family have something to do with such a powerful existence? This is not good news. As such, if the great emperors of other realms knew about it, I'm afraid they would come over and kill him before he developed, so as to avoid future troubles. But the problem is, he doesn't think that he is some kind of lucky person, the chosen son of heaven, to suppress the heavens and the world. To be killed by mistake because of this, wouldn't it be an unjust death? If he could, he didn't even want to have anything to do with the characters from 10,000 years ago. Then what? Where is that person now? Lin Yu asked. I don't know. Li Ku shrugged, that's all I heard. After all, it was so long ago, when my mother wasn't born yet. As he answered, he kept looking at Lin Yu, as if wanting to see something from him. After a while, he finally couldn't help lowering his head and asked, Brother, shouldn't you be the reincarnation of that great senior, who will go through 10,000 years of reincarnation and then rule all worlds? Lin Yu had a black line on his face. He is now almost certain that this guy is not pretending. But TM suffered from a very serious secondary disease. Seeing that he didn't speak, Li Ku was really out of breath, and continued, Don't believe it, there really is a theory of reincarnation in our world. Reincarnation? How to say? Lin Yu was finally aroused and looked at him curiously. After all, he is the son of the great emperor. No matter how he is a second grader, he is definitely not something that a loose lord can compare to him. Li Ku also seems to be very talkative. Seeing him asking, he immediately said vividly. In our myriad realms, in addition to the 10 realms of the beginning, origin, holy light, nothingness, beast gods, disasters, primordial spirits, eternity, demons, and Atlan, there are 3 very special realms. There is no lord in it, and it is completely outside the rules of the world. Is there such a place? Yes, these 3 realms are located in the largest realm of all realms, near the realm of absolute beginning. They are the realm of life, the realm of death, and the realm of reincarnation. Life, death, reincarnation. Lin You muttered to himself, a strange brilliance in his eyes. This was the first time he had heard about the secrets of the myriad realms. Even the names of the 10 great realms were the first to know all of them, and it was inevitable that they would feel novel in their hearts. So, the absolute beginning realm, the realm standing at the top of the myriad realms? But why has he never met the lord of this realm? As if he knew the doubts in his heart. At this time, Lin You said again, as an existence connecting the 3 realms, the absolute beginning realm, in a sense, is considered to be beyond the 10,000 realms. Because the people there are specially responsible for the entrance to the realm of reincarnation of life and death. And the number of great emperors is definitely the largest in the 10,000 realms, but he rarely asks about other realms, so no one has been able to go to those 3 realms to find out. Not even great emperors from other realms? Lin You was shocked. No. Lin You shook his head. Listen to my mother, the entrances to the 3 realms were all closed 10,000 years ago. Even the emperor couldn't enter, as if they were isolated from other realms. Have you been isolated? Lin Yu's expression was slightly condensed, and he was a little surprised. Unexpectedly, in this myriad world, there are so many things that he doesn't know. Although these things had nothing to do with him for a short period of time, it still allowed him to satisfy his curiosity and deepen his understanding of all walks of life. To put it simply, useless knowledge has increased again. Okay. Actually, it's still useful. After briefly sorting out the information, he raised his head and said, "Thank you for telling me so much." "It's okay, brother you are the one who wants to rule the world. When you develop in the future, don't forget me, my brother," Lin You said with a grin. "Oh, by the way, about the royal family, I will keep it a secret for you, and one more thing is, if you don't want to be seen by others, you can go to the elf forest to find the elf queen, maybe she has way to help you. You sure?" Lin Yu's eyes lit up. This is what he was waiting for, it shouldn't be wrong. Lin You nodded. "More than a month ago, the elf queen came to my mother and asked her about the royal family. I also knew at that time. A little over a month ago. Isn't that when he went to the Forest of Spirits?" Lin You was surprised. Could it be that? When his royal troops were forcibly summoned, the elf queen was also present? Looking back now, it was very possible. Otherwise, just relying on a broken mark, those elves would not be so polite to him. I am afraid it was the order given by the elves herself. Shouldn't it be? The elf queen even foresaw that he would go to the elf forest again, right? If that's the case, then this elf queen is too scary. Do not. It should be said that the emperor-level powerhouse is terrible. As expected of an existence that completely grasps the rules, this calculation ability is too terrifying. Fortunately, the other party did not show malice. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't be able to appear here safely. It seems that after this battle of 10,000 realms is over, we have to go to the Forest of Elves as soon as possible, so as to save the night. That's all. After chatting with Lin You about other things, after learning about their situation on the battlefield, Lin You parted with him and continued to explore the depths of the battlefield with his troops. And he also had an extra scroll in his hand. A battlefield treasure that Lin You said he would give with both hands as long as he saved them. Did not expect. This Lin You is still trustworthy, and he will give the treasure as he says. But think about it, as an emperor, what kind of resources have you never seen before? Coming to grab battlefield treasures is just to experience life. Seeing something bad, he gave up immediately. After all, no amount of treasures can be as important as one's own life. It is true that you understand the rules of the battlefield. Lin You smiled and immediately looked at the scroll information in his hand, but was stunned. Then a strange brilliance suddenly erupted in his eyes. This scroll. It was actually the weapon upgrade scroll that he had been thinking about all the time. Prop, upgrade scroll, army. Grade, rare. Effect, the designated arms can be upgraded to the same level as the territory, without consuming any resources, and only valid for arms below the 10th rank. Nice one. Lin You admired inwardly. This thing may be nothing to other lords. But the meaning to him is different, because after having this thing, he doesn't have to worry about the problem of rising to the 9th rank of the royal arms in the future. In other words, this scroll alone is equivalent to saving 100 Tier 8 territorial essences, and the value is incalculable. The only thing that made him a little bit sore was the quality of this scroll. Rare grade. But anything related to rarity is not simple. Even if other lords can't use this scroll, it is estimated that they will start with the price because of this rare word, and the price will definitely be much more expensive than ordinary treasures. If you want to buy it from other lords, I am afraid it will cost a lot of resources. But he had to buy it, because he has 6 royal families to upgrade. He has to get 5 more scrolls like this. Forget it, there will always be a way. After putting the scroll away, Lin You took out another treasure again. A sphere that he could not be more familiar with. Orb of Faith, advanced. After using it, you can directly gain 1000 points of faith power. That's right. It's the Jewel of Faith. And it's still advanced, adding a full 1000 faith. This is also the reason why Lin You is anxious to come to the 8th Order battlefield. Just being a Lord monster, you can directly explode a high-level belief orb, which is absolutely unimaginable in a low-level battlefield. Although he now needs 50,000 faith to level up, it's still a long way off. But belief in this kind of thing can directly improve the Lord's own strength, and no one will think too much. Putting the orb in his hand and admiring it for a while, Lin You was satisfied to put it away, and then continued on his way. At this time, his location is about 700 or 800 kilometers away from the territory, which is already considered a very deep place in the battlefield. The strength of the monsters is also much stronger than the outside world, and all of them have become SSS level. From time to time, there will even be a leader monster who leads Kai's group of younger brothers to wander around, and the frequency of appearance is more exaggerated than that of the main plane of monsters. And not many lords have come over yet. It is simply a paradise for brushing the power of the source. So immediately, Lin You changed his plan. Instead of looking for the Lord monster, they hunted and killed the leader monster everywhere on the battlefield. An entire afternoon. He hunted down a total of 500 leaders, and even the magic power has successfully exceeded hundreds of millions. But what made him most delighted was the change in the origin space. Origin, Tree of the World, sapling. Category, plants. Level 8, 450/2000. Range, 450 meters. Relic effect, 34%/17%. Talent effect, 6%. Ability, Soul Domain, Racial Talent, Halo, Summoning Space. Introduction, the soul is condensed and grown to a certain extent, it can evolve into a world, and it needs the power of the source to irrigate. Note, click here to expand the talents of each department. With a range of 450 meters, the bonuses to sacred relics and racial talents are already very impressive. Especially racial talent. Increasing the physique by 6% and the recovery speed by 6% has gradually begun to reflect the advantages of the plant system in terms of survival. Not bad. For today's harvest, Lin You is still very satisfied. Because this is only the first day, there are not many people in the depths of the battlefield, so that his actions all afternoon were very smooth, and there were not many obstacles. Glancing at the already darkened sky, he gave up his plan to continue his exploration and activated teleportation directly on the spot. The distance from the territory is 760 kilometers, and the teleportation consumes 380,000 mana. Do you want to teleport? Teleport. The voice fell, a white light lit up, and he and the troops disappeared directly in place and were teleported to the territory. The first thing to go back to the territory. Naturally, take out the faith orb and use it directly. All of a sudden, his power of belief has risen to nearly 2,000 points, and his physical strength has been slightly improved. Done with this. Only then did Lin You come to the open space beside the world tree and start sorting out the building materials harvested today, while taking out dry food and water to replenish his strength. Everyone, are there any new discoveries to share today? As soon as I sat down, the chat channel happened to chat about the battlefield. Don't mention it, I just went a little deeper this afternoon to prepare to explore, but I met a Lord-level undead archmage, and the skeletons summoned were even fiercer than the beast tide. Huh? Have you also met the undead archmage? I also encountered it. It seems that there are such monsters in every direction in the depths of the battlefield, guarding something. Those undead mages are simply not something that people can do, and a skeleton is called a large piece. It seems that it takes a lot of people to gather more people. With so many lords and monsters guarding Kai, there must be something good in it. The news on the channel kept passing by, and Lin Yu's movements gradually stopped, with a look of surprise on his face. Put the crafting materials aside, click on the chat channel and look at it for a while. It was found that many people encountered the obstruction of the Lord-level undead archmage, and there was no way to go further. Look like this. I'm afraid that behind those necromancers is the deepest part of the battlefield. That's right, just go there early tomorrow morning to see that the news has spread. Then tomorrow, the lords will definitely be prepared and gather more people to break through. If you go too late, you might not even be able to drink the soup, let alone grab the battlefield treasures dropped by the lord monsters. In that case, let's rest early today. After thinking about it, Lin Yu quickly sorted out the building materials, and then went up to the treehouse to rest. Early the next morning. As soon as it was dawn, Lin Yu set off with Kai's team. This time, he was facing a lord-level necromancer, so it could almost be said that he was dispatched in full force, leaving only 20 proliferating bodies to guard the territory. Even a large war machine like Qingting was brought out by him. Anyway, after yesterday's expansion of his origin space, he can already accommodate the ivy, and it will not be too crowded. As for the territory, it is enough to have 20 of the ontology with the 9th order attribute, and 60 of the split proliferators stationed there. Add to that the delay of the territory shield. Even if he is besieged by a strong enemy, he can immediately rush back through teleportation. That's all. Under his leadership, thousands of plants left the territory in a mighty manner, heading towards the depths of the battlefield. Look over there. A lot of plant troops. In one corner of the battlefield, several lords who were hunting monsters in the periphery just found the team led by Lin Yu and exclaimed one by one. They are already the best among the 8th order lords. But after seeing Lin Yu's army of plants, he was still shocked, especially the tall and mighty figure of the ancient war tree that was responsible for opening the way in front of the team. And the vines on the ground that are constantly twisting behind, and the flower essences flying back and forth in the sky. Seeing them numb, they dared not approach. It was the first time they had seen such a uniform and clearly divided plant army. It was as if each plant was doing its own thing, easily crushing the monsters scattered on the battlefield. If you accidentally fall into the pile of plants, you might die without knowing how. Look at the ancient tree in front, how does it hold Kai's sword in its hand? That seems to be planting troops. A few lords were instantly startled, and stared wide-eyed at the front of Kai's team, holding the Kai bamboo sword in the green gangway. Those 8th order monsters that they thought would take a lot of hands and feet to deal with were actually cut into 2 pieces by the sword energy. Kill on the spot. Just horrible. And the equipment class is notoriously rare. Who is this man? Why are there so many types of troops? Could it be that the wholesale of arms tokens is opened? Under the fear, how dare to stay, and immediately take the Kai troops away, for fear of being targeted by this monster. Lin Yu didn't pay attention to the lord he met on the way. Clearing the monsters all the way and moving forward, he soon came to the vicinity of yesterday's exploration position again, and continued to go deeper into the battlefield. It wasn't until an hour later that he finally saw the obstacles the lords said. An endless sea of skeletons, and leader-level undead bone dragons wandering in the sea of skeletons. It directly blocked the way for them to move on. Vaguely, you can still see the deepest place, a huge black shadow surrounded by clouds and mist. Looks like some kind of building? Is this the dark shadow seen in the depths of the battlefield that the lords said before? With doubts on his face, Lin Yu slowly approached the past and finally saw the main lord. A black-robed figure surrounded by death energy, holding a staff and floating above the sea of skeletons. Name, Undead Archmage, Lord. Race, Undead. Level, Level 8, SSS level. Strength, 4600 plus 4600. Physique, 4600 plus 4600. Agility, 4700 plus 4700. Spirit, 5000 plus 5000. Skills, Summoning of the Undead, Darkstorm, Sacrifice. Chaos, all attributes increased by 100%. Introduction, the Supreme Being among the Undead, masters powerful dark magic and is responsible for guarding the place where the five kings fight. What a perverted property. A full 10,000 spirits. Even Lingxi in the state of savage roar can't reach it. That is to say, with the blessing of secret treasures and exclusive talents, Qing Gang can surpass it in terms of physique. Fortunately, it should be able to kill. Lin You summed it up and felt that there was still a lot to do. As long as he can resist the impact of the sea of skeletons, then his Lingxi, with the exclusive talent of plus 20% skill power, can completely fight against this magic monster. As the eldest sister in the arms, Lingxi has been with him for the longest time, and is also the one with the strongest individual combat ability. Lin You completely believed this. After thinking about it, he said to Lingxi beside him, "Lingxi, I'll leave that guy to you later, let him see who is the strongest in the law system." Hear Lin Yu's words. Lingxi, holding a staff, immediately flew in front of him. On the small and delicate face, there is also a bit more sternness and majesty. Coupled with the crown on the top of its head, this momentum is set off to the extreme. Feeling the firmness of the spiritual connection conveyed, Lin You smiled slightly, and then his expression froze. All teams obey orders, attack. With a loud shout, all the plants were divided into several queues, led by various royal arms, and advanced towards the sea of dead spirits. At the same time, the sky darkened. Lin You directly summoned the ivy in the source space. Whoosh! 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 The moment the green vines appeared, a giant vine centered on its body quickly spread outwards, covering an area of 8 meters in an instant. A terrifying vine forest is formed around it. This huge movement immediately attracted the attention of the outermost skeleton monsters, who turned their heads one after another, and turned into a white torrent that surrounded them with a clattering sound. Ancient Tree Legion, line up! Lin You stood in the team and commanded loudly. The ancient war tree and the ancient natural tree that received the order immediately built a tree wall and collided with the army of skeletons. The bravest among them was Qing Gang, who was in charge of the middle position. He rushed directly to the front, waving the calamity sword and bamboo in his hand, and chopped off all the heads of the skeletons that rushed up, as if entering a land of no one. The royal armies in charge of other directions are not weak at all. Especially the Piranha army led by Tun Tian. Along the way, a large number of undead flowers have been resurrected, and they have become a sea of flowers that continue to spread around. Coupled with the tree demons summoned by the natural ancient trees, the number is no less than the number of skeleton armies. Block the constantly emerging skeletons at once, and fight frantically on the battlefield. The other plants were not idle either, they were working hard to support them in the rear, and they bombarded the army of skeletons that came up. Whoosh! At this time, the 2 calamity sword bamboos in the team finally moved. Pieces of bamboo leaves turned into sword energy and shot out, flying in the sky. The green vines are even more ruthless. The giant vines directly pass through the ground, and suddenly rush out in the place where the skeleton monsters are densest, and then smash them all at once, instantly clearing the skeletons in the range. The whole scene was chaotic. But it is progressing in a very orderly manner. Finally, after advancing a distance of hundreds of meters, those undead bone dragons wandering behind also moved. One by one, they roared and spread their wings, roaring towards them from all directions, spewing large pieces of dragon flames from their mouths. That scorching wave of dead energy distorted the surrounding air. The curtain of life! Lin You shouted, and the life spirit around him immediately activated his skills. Next second, a mask full of strong life breath appeared, covering all the frontline troops, and at the same time, the elves in the rear made the troops initiate group healing. With the double healing effect, it is easy to block the impact of Lin You. Seeing the undead bone dragon fly over the head of the front row and fly behind them, Lin You immediately raised his hand. The banshee vine is ready to entangle. With an order, a large piece of vines rushed out suddenly, tying the undead bone dragons and pulling them down. The undead bone dragon struggled desperately, but couldn't get rid of more and more vines. Then the pea shooters in the team turned around and fired a barrage of peas at them, piercing their sternums. In a blink of an eye, the fire of the undead in their chests was shot through by the peas, and in an unwilling roar, they were killed on the spot. This is how Lin You saw other lords mentioned on the chat channel yesterday, how to deal with the undead bone dragon. And his pea shooter, under the blessing of the secret treasure, attacks with 40% armor penetration, which is perfect for dealing with these undead bone dragons. So one is responsible for controlling, the other is responsible for the output. The original terrifying leader-level undead bone dragon army was easily disintegrated, and it did not have much impact on them at all. Keep going. After the undead bone dragon was settled, Lin You waved his hand, and the team gradually advanced to the undead archmage. Then he found out. When the archmage entered the range of his origin space, his attributes suddenly decreased by 5%, and he began to be affected by the certificate of the tyrant. Coupled with the suppression of the dragon power of the demon emperor dragon, it is then reduced by 5%. From the original 10,000 points of spirit, there are only 9,000 left. Fortunately, the opponent is only 8th order. If it is the 9th order, then his negative status effects will be greatly reduced. Just like the charming poisonous mist and the banshee's kiss, the effect on levels higher than one's own is much smaller. One of the major reasons is that the opponent's spirit is too high, and the comprehensive attribute is too high, and there will be resistance effects. For example, if you poison a weak and sick person, and a strong person, the effect will definitely be different. In the past, because there were few territorial essences required to upgrade arms, and there were many advanced arms around, this situation was rarely encountered. Troop upgrades are now harder. The gap between the levels is highlighted at once. Lin You estimated. If you encounter a 9th order lord monster, his various negative states can only achieve half the effect at most. Going up, I'm afraid it won't even work. Very good, Lingxi, it will be handed over to you. The undead archmage whose attributes have become lower has lowered the threat to him by another level. Without wasting any more time, he directly gave orders to Lingxi beside him. And this time, the undead archmage floating in the air finally couldn't stay. As soon as they approached, the death energy around the undead archmage began to surge wildly. Then he raised the skeleton staff in his hand and pointed forward suddenly. Suddenly, a black hole appeared, and a terrifying gust of wind suddenly blew towards his plant army. As soon as he shot, he directly used its dark storm skills. The entire battlefield was covered by a black storm in an instant. The proliferating troops, piranhas, and skeleton monsters that were fighting were all swept up into the sky and smashed into pieces in that black hole. Sand and rocks were flying around, and the wind was blowing, as if to swallow everything below. However, not to be outdone, Lingxi left the team and flew into the air, waving the staff in her hand, and a surging force of nature erupted. In an instant, huge wooden stakes rushed out of the ground, forming a huge circle on the battlefield, completely besieging the black hole. Boom! The stake burst, and sawdust flew. And the terrifying black hole swept by the wind also dissipated. In the absence of the savage roar blessing, they were evenly matched. If there were other lords at this time, they would definitely be shocked. How could someone be able to block the skills of an 8th order lord level monster with just one unit? And it is also the skill of the legal lord monster. If this is spread out, absolutely no one will believe it. Because even the 9th order arms can't do it to this extent. But Lingxi did it. Very good. Full attack. Lin You, who was standing in the back team, was overjoyed. While Lin You and the undead archmage were frantically battling in the air, they immediately regrouped the team, built a line of defense, and continued to attack the army of skeletons. At the same time, Qing Gang's savage roar was launched, and a large piece of red light diffused, finally letting the aura of the plant army overwhelm the skeleton, and began to slaughter frantically. These monsters. Half of them were returned by the beast tide, and half were summoned by the undead archmage. But even so, Lin Yu's mana is still rising rapidly. A prompt sounded in his mind, and it was densely connected. In just 20 minutes, his magic power increased from 100 million to 120 million, and he successfully squeezed out the fifth on the magic power list. Then another 10 minutes passed. The magic energy is 130 million, reaching the fourth place. This exaggerated speed of improvement immediately attracted the attention of the lords from all walks of life, and exclaimed all at once. "Is this Lin You taking drugs? He rose from 6th to 4th in half an hour. Looking at this increase, it should be killing monsters. Could it be that he slaughtered all the undead in the depths? Impossible? That's the undead archmage. You'll know if you look at it in the past. Fuck. It's already the third." Exclamations continued to sound all over the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yu's ranking rose again, blowing out Qing Feng, who was in third place, and was approaching the second place. And his magic energy has reached an exaggerated 140 million. Until nearly 145 million, this increase gradually slowed down. Not because of anything else, but because at this time, the battle between Lin You and the undead archmage has come to a white-hot stage. After using the Guardian Barrier skill to withstand a round of great skill attacks from the undead archmage, Lin You, who was in the team, finally broke out, condensing the power of the rules to launch an enhanced version of Barbaric Roar. Suddenly, Lin Yu's attributes overshadowed the weakened undead archmage. Sees the gap between its release skills, the thorns all over the sky condensed, and instantly shot it into a hornet's nest. Successfully killed the 8th Order Lord, the undead archmage, and obtained 100,000 magic energy. The icy reminder sound, accompanied by the shrill scream of the undead archmage, echoed in his ears. The army of skeletons summoned by it finally all died violently, turning into a pile of dead bones, leaving only a small part of the remaining monsters. "Go and clean up the remaining monsters." After saying a word to the plants around him, Lin You immediately left the team and came to the place where the undead archmage fell. I saw that after the death of the undead archmage, the death energy on his body quickly gathered, condensing above the corpse into 1 8th Order essence, 10 7th Order essence, and 3 radiant battlefield treasures. Like other battlefield treasures. The moment those treasures appeared, they were wrapped in a golden beam of light, and then soared into the sky. That magnificent scene can be seen clearly even if it is 100 miles away. Quick! Right there. That's the sign of a battlefield treasure. Someone killed the Lord Monster. Sure enough, after a while, there was a sudden burst of hurried footsteps and shouts in the distance. Several teams exploring the vicinity hurried over with their troops. In the battle just now, Lin You lost a total of 3 proliferating bodies and a symbiotic moss. All were killed by the skills of the undead archmage. And the rest of the plants are also consuming a lot and are not suitable for fighting. So I didn't think much about it. Put away the treasures and the ivy, and leave the place with the army of plants, and continue to go deeper into the battlefield. When the lords arrived, they only saw skeletons and corpses all over the place, standing there in a daze. That's the undead archmage. The undead archmage was killed. Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.